Hi, this is Ed from Exotic Blanks, once again welcoming you to a video about making a pen, this time from Whalebone. I've never worked with Whalebone before, so I was intrigued to see how this was going to work. Started out by measuring the drill bit with relation to the brass tube so that we know how deep we have to drill the blank. Once that's measured, then it's just a matter of turning on the lathe and bringing up your drill bit and locking the tailstock in position and advancing the bit a little at a time. Generally try to make sure that you remove any shavings from time to time, and people say a quarter to a half an inch. I just wait until I can see that the flutes are starting to get somewhat filled, and then I pull it back out and start cleaning out the flutes. The first one I did here was a letter V bit. This time, which is unusual, I decided to drill a smaller hole first. The reason for that is that this material was a little bit harder and I had never worked with it before, so I wanted to allow myself some opportunity for error in case it happened. Here we're drilling for the second time, actually the third time. I did expand that V bit to a 10.5 millimeter. Found out that the 10.5 millimeter was too snug a fit for my purpose, so I moved on to the next bit, which is 27/64. That will give me a hole where the tube will slide in and out very easily. You always want to recall that when you're working with any natural substance, the whalebone being natural, very dense, but still you don't know for sure what's going to happen when it's exposed to humidity and so forth as a pen. So I try to make my holes just a little bit loose, not a lot, but a little bit loose, so that when there's any movement in that material or in the brass tube itself, it doesn't crack the pen. We've kind of fast forwarded here to the end of the turning of the blank. You'll see more turning, but the stuff that I did originally is just an awful lot of turning and getting sharp and turning some more. I used a high-speed steel skew the whole time. Now I'm taking advantage of the opportunity to do a little glue enhancing here. The porous parts of the bone, I wanted to make sure that I gave them the opportunity to get more held together, more adhered to each other. So that's why the thin CA is going on here, and the purpose is just to try to reinforce the blank. If you don't do this, it certainly could turn out fine, but what I'm concerned about is that I would hit one of those low spots and tear away the rest of the material. So I could ruin the blank just because I didn't take a couple minutes and put thin CA on it. Fairly simple, a good idea, it's a good practice. From here on, I'm just trying to shave off a little at a time until I get the profile that I like. There really was no time that I took off this material in anything but shavings. It's very hard, and it's one of those things where you don't get ribbons. You just try to shave it off a little bit at a time, and don't put too much pressure on it. Just let the sharp tool do its thing, and hopefully you'll be able to take off enough material that I think the whole thing took me somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 minutes. So it wasn't a real long time, and at the same time I never felt like I was putting too much pressure on the bone. Bone never got hot. Tool never got hot. Everything did pretty much what I had hoped it would do. Moving on to sanding, I used a 400 grit first, and then up to a 600 grit and a 1000 grit. At that point I had kind of a nice shine. You could have left it at that point if you wanted to. Prior to all this, by the way, I did use one final coat of CA, thin CA, not for the purpose of really doing much or anything, but to fill in some of the low spots. There was a grain to the portions of the bone, and I filled that in with thin CA. You can't tell it. It doesn't look like thin CA. But after that, it was then sanded, and the 400 paper pretty much leveled things out. 600, 1,000. Once the 1,000 was finished, it was done on the lathe. I then took it to the buffing station, and with a triple-E wheel followed by a white diamond wheel, it was then buffed to a relatively high shine. You'll see the picture of the pen at the end. So that concludes my first experience with Whalebone. I liked the pen. It was a Virage eventually in Thai gold. The Whalebone still looks like it has a little character, and I'm just happy with it. So thanks for watching. This is Ed from Exotic Blanks. Good night.